Colleagues, hello. Colleagues, good morning and welcome to this. To those who are online, hello to you. We welcome you. We are starting our program now. Let me just announce a few logistics first before. Okay. All right. I think they will sort out that microphone. So we welcome Excellency Ambassador Wu Peng. We are welcome at the National School of Government. We're great to have you. The Minister for Public Service and Administration was here. He was sent somewhere by the presidency. He is coming back. So he said we should proceed. He may interrupt whilst we are proceeding. So we are not going to stop the program. I also want to announce that the Excellency, the Ambassador, will not be here throughout the program. At some point, he will leave. We will allow you, Ambassador, to sneak out, and then our lecture will proceed. So, as we all know, that we recently had a FOCAC summit in Beijing. It was okay. There are people who've got Zoom on here, linking their friends. Leaders of higher education institutions, about 10 of them, executive deans and other leaders. We bring them here because through the partnership that we have, we're able to expand the depth and the quality of our training programs with these universities. In some cases, in fact, I think one professor at the back has had some of the papers from Miss Jenna
Summit. After attending the FOCAC, I have been thinking about what is the secret of the success of China-Africa cooperation, and what are the keys for China-Africa to pursue the dream of modernization together. I would like to summarize it in 4 Ps, or there are still common civilization. Leadership Academy in Dar es Salaam and its network with SADC countries. And of course, you know, we Chinese believe all civilizations in this planet are equal. No civilization is higher or advanced than another. That is, we launched the Global Civilization Initiative. And I personally, face-to-face, heard from President Ramaphosa. South Africa, he said, South Africa support Global Civilization Initiative. I think it's very important for China and Africa. Sometimes civilization or modernization doesn't necessarily just means westernization. In recent history, maybe European lead the industrialization revolution 400 years ago. But if you have a long range of the history, all civilizations contribute to humankind's development. NSG is a gas station for South Africa's leading cadres at all levels. I hope that NSG will promote more exchange and cooperate with China. The embassy is already ready to provide necessary assistance. The second P, I think, is planning. Planning is one of the successful experience of China's development. China has been standardizing its own development goals with African Union's Agenda 2063 and national plans. For example, the Beijing Action Plan this year focused on connecting with all Africa plans, such as the Program for Infrastructure Development in Africa, PIDA, and the Accelerated Industrialization Development Program for Africa, AIDA. As the South Africa Your 2030 National Development Plan has been formulated. Accordingly, China and South Africa are promoting the implementation of the 10-year strategic program of cooperation and are committed to strengthening the interface between the Belt and Road Initiative and the South Africa Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan to achieve more tangible results. You know, ladies and gentlemen, what we China can do in Africa are those only you request or allow us to do, right? Africa is Africans to Africa. We understand you are the host, we are the guest, we are your partner. So when we design any plan, we consider your request first. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Third P, I think, is policy, namely open policy. China will not close our door to the world, but open wider. The third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China made a strategic plan to further deepen reform in a comprehensive manner and promote Chinese modernization, strengthening the opening to the outside world. At the FOCAC summit, China voluntarily and unilaterally announced to give all LDC countries have diplomatic relations with China, including 33 countries in Africa. Zero tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines. China also signed economic partnership agreements, EPA, with 22 African countries, which is China's policy of one-way favoritism to Africa. We hope the South Africa will sign the EPA shortly to aboard the express train of China's development. Let me a little bit explanation here. Maybe in South Africa, you cannot enjoy the 100% zero tariff policy because you are not our LDC country. South Africa actually is advanced economy. But we have another choice, is the EPA. Actually, I can call it a kind of a free trade agreement. But we also understand that South Africa may be worried about if there is a free trade agreement with China, Chinese products will flood it into your market. No, no, no. We do not want that happen. We will not pursue a reciprocal arrangement with South Africa, right? When we talked with the European Union, of course, we must have a reciprocal arrangement in the trade. But with South Africa, we can consider, under your request, give you some one-way favorable policy. You know, I always heard from many South African friends complain about the rebalance of our trade or reform the construction of the trade between our two countries. Okay, I heard of it, but we need take actions at once. That is why before the FOCAC, we provide economic partnership agreements to your government. I know it takes time. You want to review, but we need negotiate the trade policy at once. Otherwise, according to WTO rule, we can do nothing, right? We need agreement so that we can give South Africa products access to Chinese market, a privileged tariff, policy. Fourth P is people. China adheres to the people-centered development. We always put the people first. And its cooperation with Africa has always been people-oriented. The 10 partnership actions include the construction of 30 clean energy projects and the implementation of 1,000 small and beautiful livelihood projects. I think South Africa, as the biggest economy in Africa, must occupy some of these kind of projects, especially in green energy. In South Africa, China's Juncao technology for mushroom has helped thousands of local farms in KZN to become rich. The job fair by Chinese-funded enterprises has helped many South African young people realize their dreams. I know employment is a big problem, right? Your president always emphasized, create jobs. That is also my priority when I consider cooperation with South African side. And the Aravind power project in Northern Cape has provided 300,000 local families with clean electricity. China will do more on poverty reduction in Northern West Province because we want to have a test first in Northern West provinces. Let us try whether Chinese model can copy it into South Africa in the elevation of poverty, because we are not very sure. Every nation's conditions are different, but I want to try. As to provide assistance in employment and people's livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, as an African proverb goes, a friend is someone you share with the past with. The FOCAC Summit will surely promote both sides to work faster and further hand in hand on the road of modernization. Every country, every people have the right to reach modernization. I hope that some of my reflections will inspire you, and I look forward to your insightful remarks. Finally, on behalf of the Chinese Embassy, I would like to express my gratitude to NSG for organizing this seminar. I wish it grateful, successful. I'm really sorry that I have to leave earlier. Actually, my colleague, Councillor Ouyang, will stay here to listen your opinion, suggestion, even some construction criticism to our further, follow up FOCAC outcome. It's very important. We can understand your idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Let me call Ambassador Harvey to make some remarks from their call. Then we go to our experts. He's from the multilateral desk at our DECO.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Principal of NSG, and also Your Excellency, the Ambassador of China, and professors and other academics, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, the original program said this will be Ambassador Lally from the China desk. So I've got news for you. I'm not Ambassador Lally. She's much more prettier than I am. My name is Henry William Short, and I come from the branch that deals with global governance and the Africa agenda. My unit is responsible for the partnerships of the Africa Union with international cooperating partners, and that for that reason, we are also responsible for FOCAC. So what I will be discussing with you at this conference is from a partnership point of view. Principal, I have a good friend who works here, Professor Tiaan Potgieter, whom I've known since he was the head of CMIS, the Center for Military Studies at Stellenbosch. And I think when Tiaan describes me, he will say that I sometimes masquerade as a military historian, which is what I quickly want to refer to on a lighter note. There was this particular operation in northern Namibia when South Africa was still involved in the conflict, and a force had to be mobilized in secret. And in Bloemfontein, these vehicles and armored cars were loaded onto a train in the middle of the night in a highly secret operation. And the commander of the unit was overseeing this, and the station master approached him. And the station master introduced himself, and he said to this commander, he said, "Where are you going?" And the commander said, "This is a secret. You're not supposed to know. Leave." And about 10 minutes later, again, the station master approached and he said, "But sir, where are you going?" And the commander said, "This is a secret operation. Get lost. It's not for you to know." And it was repeated a short while later when the station master again asked, "Where are you going?" And the commander then decided that this is the end of it. And he said to him, "Sir, please remove yourself. But may I just ask, why are you so insistent on asking where we are going?" And he said, "I'm the station master. I know which side of this train I have to put the locomotive." So as the ambassador referred to, the work that we've done, the declaration did not come from yesterday. It did not come from the summit with Councillor Ouyang, and I just want to recognize him, maybe if he can stand up where he is. We have been dealing with the Embassy of China since, I think, about March or February in the design and the text of the draft declaration, as well as the action plan. This has been an ongoing process, and I would really like to recognize the embassy and the team of Councillor Ouyang in this process. And what we've been consistent is that the locomotive that we've added to this train, or that we've attached to this train, is Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. In particular, it is the second 10-year implementation plan of Agenda 2063 that we launched. It was launched by our heads of state at the summit of the African Union in February. So in my discussion, and you would also have, when you listen to the ambassador, he would have referred to the importance then of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So that is where the locomotive is hooked onto the FOCAC, is Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. I do apologize. I have a slight sight impediment. So if I struggle just with something, it is just because of the bad light. So the summit took place from 4 to 5 September in Beijing under the theme, "Joining Hands to Advance Modernization and Build a High-Level China-Africa Community with a Shared Future." The summit was preceded by a senior officials meeting on the 2nd of September and a ministerial meeting on the 3rd of September. The summit underscored the commitment of both the African states and China in addressing critical issues such as security, beneficiation of critical minerals, development and debt relief. The discussions during the senior officials meeting and during the ministerial meeting, as well as then the summit, highlighted the need for inclusive and comprehensive approaches to these challenges, and emphasized the importance and continuous engagement and monitoring to ensure the successful implementation of the agreed initiatives. As South Africa, we're delighted that our president was invited as one of the 5 African heads of state of government, together with Mauritania, the Republic of Congo, Nigeria, and Tanzania, to deliver remarks at the opening ceremony of the summit. President Ramaphosa also co-chaired a high-level meeting on industrialization, agricultural modernization, and green development, together with Mr. Wang Huning, the member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China Central Committee, who is also the chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference National Committee. China invited 53 heads of state of the 55 African heads of state to be at the conference. The 2 that were not invited were Eswatini and then the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. They're not invited just because of Taiwan, the ties of Eswatini with Taiwan, and also the China not recognizing the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. Now, FOCAC is a multilateral initiative. Implementation of FOCAC, of the programs, is undertaken bilaterally. Therefore, the outcomes of the high-level strategic bilateral engagement, which preceded the FOCAC summit, including the high-level meeting that President Ramaphosa had with President Xi, his counterpart, also with the Premier, Li Qiang, and between Minister Lamola and the Minister Wang Yi, as well as the 7 bilateral agreements that were signed between South Africa and China, are of critical importance in assessing the implications of FOCAC. I think we had several references to that in the meeting when we met in the other room now. Africa-China relations are principally governed and administered through FOCAC. This partnership functions primarily through ministerial conferences, of which 8 have been held to date. This summit was the 4th of 4, then 2006 to 2015 in South Africa, 2018, and then 2024. The 2018 and 2024 FOCAC summits coincided with the state visits of President Ramaphosa. For us, in terms of our partnerships, FOCAC is an anomaly in respect of the African Union strategic partnerships, as the partnership is not coordinated through the African Union and its policy organs, but is coordinated through the group of African ambassadors in Beijing, which is in deferral of the usual practice of a common African position adopted in others when exploring areas of cooperation. From an African Union point of view, the preferred approach is to align with AU objectives, particularly aimed at supporting Africa's continental programs and projects aimed at socioeconomic development and the integration of the continent, as espoused in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. So just to remind you, the outcome of the outcome of the summit were the declaration and the action plan. And if you analyze then the declaration and the action plan, you'll find that it focuses on the China-Africa cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative, implementation of the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. I think these initiatives were referred by His Excellency in his opening remarks. So the other areas of cooperation then deals with Africa development plans such as Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, industrialization, connectivity, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the AFCFTA, trade and investment, energy transition, capacity building, climate response, peace and security, cyber security, the reform of the United Nations and also multilateral development banks, the Palestine, Israel and Russia, Ukraine conflicts, and then lastly, the debt crisis. So from a South African perspective, the main aim of President Ramaphosa's attendance and participation in the summit was to support Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, including its second 10-year implementation plan and the African Union's flagship programs. Now, you will recall that there are 7 aspirations with Africa, the Agenda 2063, which are a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, an integrated continent politically united based on the ideals of Pan-Africanism, an Africa of good governance, democracy, and respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law, a peaceful and secure Africa, silencing the guns, an Africa with a strong cultural identity, values, and ethics, an Africa where development is people-driven, relying particularly on the potential of women and youth, and then lastly, an Africa that is strong and influences global and is an influential global player and partner. So 2 of the flagship programs that are associated with these ambitions, I would like to focus on them. The first is the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA. So the AfCFTA provides for trade and economic liberalization and development, including, among others, the free movement of goods, of services, of factors of production, and intra-regional investment and foreign direct investment. The question is, how do we, if I have goods to sell you and you have goods to sell me, how do we move that? So that's the second priority, is then specifically related to the development of efficient infrastructure and services to facilitate the free movement of people, of goods, of services across the continent, which will be enhanced through interventions in the following key areas: transport, telecommunications, ICT, energy, and water. The full and effective implementation of the AfCFTA depends on speeding up of infrastructure development through the continent, and to also make it easy for goods and services to move from one African country to another, connecting 55 countries, 1.3 billion people, and the combined gross domestic product of $3.4 trillion. So in terms of programming, therefore, it's really essential, Ambassador, that FOCAC should consider those programs that add value to continental integration and to realize maximum impact. We remain consistent in our request that for the review of FOCAC and advocate for a clearer delineation of bilateral versus multilateral projects. From a historical perspective, it must be recalled that in the 1960s, China, which at that stage was still a developing country, with a very limited scope for international assistance, pioneered a regional approach to development in Southern Africa by investing in the development of Dar es Salaam as a regional port to serve a number of countries, as well as the development of the Tazara railway line to Kapirimposhi in the north of Zambia, and then the pipeline project to Lusaka. So South Africa recognized this pioneering role played by China in this regard, with our request that similar cross-border and regional projects should be considered by China in support of Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, with regard to the flagship projects, then specifically related to regional integration projects, to industrialization, to beneficiation of minerals, to skills transfers and capacity building, which is the theme of this meeting today, to agriculture modernization, to local sourcing of materials, to cross-border infrastructure projects, and driving support for infrastructure investments critical to the successful implementation of the AfCFTA. What we are proposing Ambassador, is a definition to be considered for a regional project. That it be defined as a cross-border project involving 2 or more African Union member states. Or alternatively, a national project that demonstrates a regional impact on 1 or more African Union member states. If I can use an example of the Port of Durban, which serves the whole of Southern Africa, or OR Tambo as an airport that has a regional impact, or even closer, the N1 running from Cape Town to Messina that runs past Pretoria, just considering the amount of trade that that route takes. So it's a national project that demonstrates an impact on the countries north of us. In the second instance, it's proposed that the FOCAC programs should be based on broad participation and consultation in order to engage as many stakeholders as possible. In so doing, to create ownership for the outputs and to internalize the principles on which FOCAC is based. The management of cooperative programs should add to the principle of subsidiarity, whereby all programs and activities are undertaken at levels where they can be best handled. This means that the involvement of continental and regional institutions and authorities and agencies are to initiate and implement the programs using their own generated resources should be promoted and encouraged. It also calls for the engagement of continental and regional expertise and institutions for program management and implementation, and should further enhance capacity building and local ownership. With the support of China, we can diversify our economies from the export of raw materials to the production and manufacturing of goods and services. Through this, we would be able to tackle poverty, inequality, and unemployment, and we will be able to support continental peace and security. We also appeal to China to support the reform agenda to ensure that the global political and financial architecture can meet the aspirations of the African continent. Africa must be properly represented on these bodies, and its interests must be effectively addressed. So we urge the Chinese government to encourage more private investment in the African market. We call for support to the development of infrastructure to facilitate intra-Africa trade under the AFCFTA. And then specifically, the foreign direct investment and private sector support is essential for our integration, growth, and development on the continent. I wish to conclude by also just referring to 2 things. The one is to frame FOCAC cooperation against the backdrop of the African Union draft partnership strategy and its policy framework, which aims to regularize and align the development initiatives of the various development partners of Africa. The emphasis in this new approach is on joint programming or joint monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and transparency. Moving forward, this direction will be fundamental to take forward and reshape FOCAC, taking into consideration that the monitoring and evaluation of FOCAC is the sole responsibility of the Chinese government, with very limited input currently from the African side. Allow me also, lastly, Ambassador, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, just to make reference to the Chinese global initiatives, namely the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative. South Africa welcomes China's role as the leader on the global stage and acknowledges acknowledges that China's global initiatives are aimed at improving global peace and security, promoting socio-economic development, and contributing to the reform of global governance. South Africa is confident that China will promote these initiatives, noting the primacy of the United Nations and of the African Union, and in line with the principles and programs of the UN and the AU, including then the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and the principle of subsidiarity. So South Africa looks forward to close consultation and cooperation with China on both bilateral and global issues of mutual interest, and urges China to cooperate closely with other major powers in dealing with the global challenges such as climate change, conflict prevention and resolution, fair trade, and poverty alleviation. I would very much like to thank the National School of Governance for hosting this seminar, and I hope through the conclusion some very concrete ideas will be developed on how Africa can engage more proactively with China for the long-term socio-economic development of the continent. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a gift for the ambassador as he leaves.
Oh, it's a real honor.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador. Now we proceed. I'm going to change the seating slightly, so I'm gonna ask those who are on the program. So Dr. Sun, you're gonna have to sit on the chair there. Prof. Paswana, you have to come and sit in the front, and then we're gonna swap and sit there. So those who are on the program, please, Prof. Paswana, come to the front. Please come and sit there. And then I'm gonna move the DDG there, because when the minister comes, you'll sit there. Okay, so let's begin. Where is the lapel microphone? Is it on here already? So colleagues, Prof. Wang is otherwise called Mama by many African students who go to training programs in Beijing. As you got the invitation, you saw her full profile, so I'm not going to be reading that for you, but she's an expert on China-Africa relations, in particular on cultural communication. So Prof. Wang, please do come, give your intervention, and then we will take Dr. Sun after you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Anyone help me for my PowerPoint? PowerPoint. Okay, yes, right. Play, you can play it. So, respect Professor Gawini and Zhibing, and also ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Hi, Paul. I'm so happy to see the old friends and meet new friends here. And as our president said in the FOCAC summit, Beijing summit, said China-African friendship transcends time and space, surmount mountains and oceans, passed down through generation to generation. Now, even we live in Beijing, far away from you, but I do think we are close to each other in our hearts. For we travel through the mountain and sea and through 25 hours to come here. I feel really excited and happy to stand here. There are two reasons why I'm so excited. One reason is we cooperate with NSG for years. Even during the pandemic, we worked together for seminar online. Yeah, finally, NSG, here I am. I feel so happy for that. Yeah. Another reason is today is special. It's my birthday. So I also feel really happy. This is a really good birthday present for me to be here. It's not a speech or lecture. It's a kind of a sharing. As a professor and a researcher for intercultural communication, I do like to share with you from the intercultural perspective, how to understand of our presidency's speech. I will make this short and brief and practical, and how we work together well to manipulate the actions and the partnership together. And I will highlight the significance and the importance of intercultural perspective, and also about the cultural comparison. And then the key points about the presidency's speech, and also the challenges and the future direction of my sharing. Oh, I cannot play it. Can you go back? Oh, I have this. Yes, sorry. It does not work. It does not work. I'm sorry for that. Okay. I cannot move. Okay. Is that not working? My name is yeah. Where I pointed. My name is Wang Xiaoming. I'm a professor. I work in the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. It's the national think tank. And all African friends call me Mama, like a Busani, Boga, and Paul. Now, I'm so happy for this name. You can call me Mama too. Even maybe I'm not old enough to be your mom, but I really like this addressing. Okay, I'm from China Africa Institute, and we have 4 functions. One is academic. Is it okay? Yeah. Oh, it's good. Yeah. Mutual learning and mutual understanding. That's me. I'm here. China Africa Institute. We have 4 functions. It's academic exchange platform and academic research base, the professional development ground, and the people-to-people exchange window. That's our function. We work together for a lot of seminars. Maybe you can find yourself here. This is the first seminar in the year 2009 for African countries, poverty alleviation. That's also the first seminar I was in charge of. Since then, I have a connection with Africa. And then I was moved to work in the China Africa Institute. So that's arranged, right? Yeah. And this is the seminar we work together for all this. You can find the Bangani, Tiago, and the Busani. Let's also share with you some parts of pictures about our seminar. I show African friends about the China. Now, after this FOCAC, I do hope we can have opportunity to work together, show you about the true China, and also take people here to show us about the true Africa, to see how we work together to practically make all this action happen. And that's from the intercultural perspective overview. That's we are from a different nation. We speak different languages. You are not all speak English, right? You're from different parts of South Africa. And then we have a different worldview. We have a different culture, and we have a different custom. Of course, this will cause misunderstanding and problems. And you know, in China, we have a proverb. When we make a banquet, we put all food together. The key or the important is the diversity. The diversity is really, really important. We don't want to make all the things put in one bowl. become one thing. Now we want all the things displayed here. Now people choose whatever they like, but we also would like you can enjoy different things from different cultures. We Chinese people are educated to accept other culture, to respect other culture. Now, maybe sometimes you understand wrongly by our words. That's from our culture is good, but maybe you misunderstand it. But we misunderstand your concept. From your culture, it's okay, but from our culture, maybe that's something means different story. So that's why intercultural communication important. We respect others, we accept others' culture. That's how to say, mutual understanding, mutual learning. That will play really important role here for the globalization, for we say global south, for the cooperation. We need to respect each other, to accept each other, to learn from each other. So that's what I would like to share with you. Oh, you cannot see. This is blue in my pad, but it's white. Okay. The purpose of purpose is to better understand, to compare the difference, and then you can compare the difference. You understand with each other. We have a lot in common. After comparison, we find out we have differences, but we have a lot in common. Just like the ambassador said, your concept, the Ubuntu, we Chinese philosophy is true. People work together. And I will show you from Confucius, if you want to develop yourself, you need to develop other people first. If you don't think this is good for you, you don't do it to other people. That's our philosophy. So comparison, oh, sorry, it works here. For comparison, help for better understanding. Sorry for technical things. I want to share these two words from Mandela and Gandhi. I always show it to my students. It's Mandela said, if you talk to man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. So in China, we promote to learn different language, not just English, French, Spanish. We learn Hausa language, Swahili language, even Somali language. We encourage people to learn different kind of language, even this is from a tribe, like a Hamahala language, to have a better understanding about Africa. Now, this is what we're doing now. And the Gandhi, that's said, I'd like to let cultural wind around the world blow freely through my house, but I don't want any gusts of wind to blow away from the ground under my feet. So what I put it here, that means we need to learn others' language, to learn other culture better, but also no matter what kind of culture you accept, but stand here for your own. That's really important. What's wrong? And this is the concept about the culture and the communication. I will now go through it. Culture is the things for the habit and what we shared in the group. Culture is communication. Communication is culture. I will not use it. See here. The nature of a culture, that's we learned, we shared, transgeneration, symbolic, pattern adapted. Like the order of name, you can find the culture. Our name, my name is Wang Xiaoming. Wang, that's a family name, means king. And Xiaoming, that's my given name. Xiao, that's daybreak. I was born at 5 o'clock, it's daybreak. And the Ming in Chinese means bright. My parents would like me to have a bright future. They were professors in the university, and I was trained to be professor, a very good professor in the university. Yeah. Now I can show you in our university, there are more than 367 courses offered. I ranked the third. You see? I'm a best teacher. Okay. So the order, but in your language, my name should be Xiaoming Wang. Now here we show different culture. We Chinese care the family, the kinship a lot. but you care the individual. I, as a person, individual, you should take me in consideration. But we Chinese people sacrifice a lot for the family. So that's cultural. Just the simple order of name, we can see different culture. So you call me mama, no matter what's the order. Okay. And this one I always use to show my students, this is a survey. For in China, there is a joke. Girl always ask a boyfriend, if me and your mom drop into the river, who you will save first? And that's a survey. But in China, here, Chinese gentlemen here, of course, mom. Mom, there's only one, you have no choice, but you can choose your wife. But now that's a survey is from American survey. That's American people. The man say, save the wife. For wife is my responsibility. Mom, that's dad's responsibility. That's cultural differences. Can you say which is good, which is bad? No, just difference. Yeah, just the difference. Yeah. So we see the cultural. This is we see the cultural aspect. We can see only here. There is a lot inside we do not know. Why we are here? We want to know better, and we want you to know better about us. So that's the people-to-people communication matters. Now, communication is a cultural, culture is communication. I will not say that. For the nature of communication, we encode the message and we speak the speak, and then you listen, you decode it. During this time, what way we used? Like I'm talking and you are listening, it's easy to understand. If it's people is online, it's not easy for them to understand. Now there is a noise. Noise, that's the barrier. The barrier that will cause conflict and misunderstanding. So we need to know that and solve this barrier and the conflict. Okay. That's the dimension of culture. Whenever we talk about the interculture, we will talk about dimension of culture. Now, we Chinese, we are collectivism. And we are respect the power, the distance of power distance is high. That's we respect the authority, respect the power. And also for the uncertainty avoidance, we Chinese people are fear about uncertainty. We want to make everything ready and sure, and then we do it, like saving money. Some culture, they don't save, they spend, but they have a good social welfare. But we Chinese, we are developing our social welfare system. We are better now, but we save a lot for the future, for the something unpredictable. Now that's cultural. And the masculine and feminine, we Chinese and the Japanese culture are most masculine. The man's word. Okay. Yeah. So you can compare with your own culture. I guess you are more individual. You are more individual. Different dimension of the culture. I will not talk about this. This is want to share the Chinese culture. Just now I mentioned we have a complete system and we have an open system. We have a human-centered system. We say human first, human-centered. And also it is a system of great moral power. And like I just now talk to you, that's do not do to others what you would not have others to do to you, and help others to be established when you wish to be established. This is also my mom's family's philosophy. I remember when I was really young, my mom took me to clean the corridor. Say, you make other people comfortable, other people will make you comfortable. Now you treat other people good, other people will treat you good. That's also my philosophy, and that's what I do. So you can understand why they call me mama. When they were in China, I care everything. I make a home there. And then before I came here, Busani and Tiago said, Mama, come, we make a home for you here. So I feel really, really happy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. That's a cultural differences. And we have a lot differences. I will not show that. Like handshaking, like verbal communication or non-verbal communication, the gestures. There is some verbal communication, different language uses. I want to show you later when you hear Chinese people say it, don't misunderstand. In Chinese, we are like Ouyang, we are close friend. Busani, we are close friend, good friends. When I ask him to help me, he will, of course, definitely help me. In Chinese, we say, we don't need to say anything. I'm there always. But some people translated it directly. That's, we are older friends. We have nothing to say. So that's totally different. That means that we are older friends. You don't need to say anything. I'll always be there. So that's different. The translation is wrong and cause you understand wrongly. And say it's very cold here, implication. Chinese people are implied a lot. They are not so direct. When we say it's very cold here, I mean, please turn off the air conditioner. Now, maybe you will say, oh, please make it higher or warmer. Now, that's a culture. That does not mean we are not open, we are not direct, but a culture. We don't say directly, we show respect. So if you know that, you know, oh, Chinese people show respect, not just that they are not open. Yeah. And also white elephant battery. White elephant is a beautiful thing for us. Maybe in English culture, it's something costly and useless. Now we have a battery named the white elephant, but it changed. It cannot sold in Western country, in other country. Where are you going? We greet. You say, hi, hello. You don't ask people where you are going. We will ask, where are you going? This is just hi, hello. Not just check where you really go. I will not follow you. Now that's a greeting. That's greeting. And like I say, I love this scarf. You say, wow, it's good. I will try it. But I don't mean I want it. You don't mean you want it. But Chinese people normally give as a gift for you. That's our culture. You like it, I will sacrifice myself and give it to you. Yes, and sometimes it costs you in ambassador and how say uncomfortable way. That's what we'll call. So we needed to know each other. We ask you, how old are you? Do not mean to invade your privacy, just to show the close relations and the friendship to you, to ask. So that's cultural. That's cultural, right? The verbal communication now. I always use Aristotle and Confucius. Confucius, Chinese culture, gave a lot of direction and instruction to direct the students, but Aristotle will ask questions. You think by yourself. So that's what we also needed to learn. And I would like you to know us, right, better. And also for number cultural differences, it cause confusion, and we really need to know from each other. And then I will briefly, for my colleague, Professor Wang Weiwei, for promotion for the professor. She is an associate professor. It happened yesterday, so she delayed 2 days. I will add something from her speech here, understanding the C's report from FOCAC from the intercultural perspective. I will not read it, I'll go brief. FOCAC overview, you know that it's for more than 20 years. That's for China-African cooperation. It's important for both of us, right? That's from the intercultural perspective, that's cultural diversity in Africa and China. Nowadays, we respect your culture and you respect our culture. We would like the diversities there. Diversity is beautiful, but we still need to know the diversity. Not to say, oh, there's a diversity, I take no notice for it. I take it for granted. No, we need to know the diversity, respect the diversity, and learn from each other, and then we can understand better from each other. And communication barrier and bridge. We don't speak the same language. We have a different worldview, and we consider the things from a different angle. That will be the barrier for us to understand. So we need to learn each other's language. If you know some Chinese language, and then that's like a Paul can communicate in Chinese language, we will not have a lot of misunderstanding. And then we needed to learn English well, or maybe your the tribal language well, and then we can understand better. We'll try. Yeah. Okay. Also, adaptation strategy. Our relationship is reached to the strategic level, and for the community for human. Share the community for mankind is also the all-weather and the high level and high quality. It's changed a lot for COCA for these 20 years. Economic cooperation here, Belt and Road Initiative and investment opportunity, trade facilitation measures. I'm not English, I'm not economic major or learner, so I cannot explain in details. I put it here. I translate it. If there's a wrong translation, forgive me. Yes, yeah, it's highlighted the report. And also, this is the bilateral tie strengthening. My purpose here is strengthen our relationship and the friendship. Also share the governance principle, manipulate platform contribution. We will work together to contribute to it. Now, so cultural exchange and understanding, that's what I would like to focus on as educational cooperation initiative. We had a lot of educational cooperation programs. My colleague will talk about the digital transformation for digital talent training in his speech. We had a lot, and from this speech, already a lot of programs, actions, how to say, it's put forward here. We need to take this opportunity to work together. I went to the UNISA before I came here. Now we talk a lot for the cooperation, for training the young people, the women, or the leadership. You are the right places for the leadership training. Now we will have a 25 network for developing the leadership professionals. We will take this opportunity to work together. Now, China-African institutes are always be there to support, to help, and to work together, right? And enhance the people-to-people tie. Now, people-to-people communication. We have sponsored a lot of seminars. For last year, 10 from your school to attend the seminar. Now, this year, now maybe the late this year, we will also invite some from your school. Now, cultural heritage prevention. We have a project to prevent the cultural heritage. We have a museum, especially for cultural heritage. It's near our office. Now, welcome you to pay visit to there. Now, this is economic cooperation. I will not talk about political cooperation. And for the cultural cooperation, now it's changed. Now, we want to bridge the cultural gap. Now, we want to work as a bridge to link two sides together to do more cooperation. And we work together with the embassy, with your school together to do this. And we promote the cultural diversity. We have a cultural festival. Before the FOCAC, we were involved in holding a kind of a media conference. We invited Busani and Paul to attend to make a speech there. It's really, really important. We work together through the film, the TV programs, festivals, seminars to make people to understand better. Now, this is enhance the global understanding. We talk about the global source. Now we will have a strengthen this tie to work together. Now, challenging, we still have challenges. That's, I want to call about the language barrier. Still, language is the problem for understanding. We will train more people to know not English, but other part we call the 小语种, how to say in English, 小语种. Diversity of languages, say, and the resource allocated in balance for that. Still, we have an opportunity like a digital connectivity, youth engagement, innovation, technology transfer. I didn't transfer this into English because Stone will give you the details. I don't want you to know more about the content, and we need to work together, strengthen the South-South cooperation, to advance the global governance, to fostering peace and stability, peace and security. That's always the key issue for us. The future direct, we say the FOCAC is a kind of platform. They show the future direction normally. Now we can find the future direction from this year's FOCAC. there's a continuity and the evolution of FOCAC and deepening the intercultural dialogue from the intercultural perspective, and also realizing the shared prosperity, shared everything we hand in hand jointly build and we share in the future for that. Okay, final thought, that's importance of open dialogue. Now, any conflict can be solved by dialogue. If we sit here, talk together, communicate completely, we'll solve this problem. And embracing the cultural diversity, love the diversity, collaborative efforts for the better world, we work together. Now, my purpose here is to strengthen the friendship and the cooperation. I really would like to invite you to be there to do the same kind of thing. And then I'm sure we will have a bright future. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really a special day for me. Thank you. Hope I didn't.
Dr. Sun, it's your turn.
Hello, colleagues, and it's my honor to give this speech here. And this is first time I come to South Africa. I feel very excited. So let me give a brief introduction of myself. And now I'm a lecturer at the University of Chinese Academy of Social Science. And I was also a visiting scholar at the University of Edinburgh. I got my PhD from the University and the Master of Research from University of Glasgow. My main research interest is on micro-theory and digital economics. I graduated and got my PhD degree in 2023. Currently, I got some publications on economics letters, and I was invited to present my paper on World Congress of Game Theory Society, the Foundation of Utility and Risk Annual Conference, Scottish Economics Society Annual Conference. This is me. So today, I will focus on the digital talent and digital education. At the 2017 Belt and Road Forum for the International Cooperation, President Xi Jinping introduced the concept of the digital Silk Road, a vision crucial for fostering a fair global digital environment, which particularly focuses on accelerating Africa's digital transformation. At the 2023 Digital Economy High-Level Forum, part of the Third Belt and Road Forum, China and 14 countries endorsed the Beijing Initiative for International Cooperation in the Belt and Road Digital Economy, emphasizing digital literacy skills enhancement. While Africa's digital infrastructure continues to improve, the lack of digital talent and skills remains a significant barrier to the continent's economic transformation. Recently, on September 5, 2024, the Beijing Declaration on jointly building an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era was adopted at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Beijing Summit. The declaration encourages great cooperation between China and Africa in education and young development, and reaffirm China's commitment to supporting Africa's education modernization through the Plan for China-Africa Cooperation on Talent Development. Currently, cooperation between China and Africa on developing digital talent is still in its early stage as part of the broader Digital Silk Road initiative. Looking ahead, the Plan for China-Africa Cooperation on Talent Development should prioritize the training of African students in digital fields, ensuring the program are targeted, inclusive, and scalable. At the same time, efforts must be made to cultivate local digital professionals in Africa through partnership between Chinese and African educational institutions. Chinese business should also be encouraged to take a more active role in supporting the development of Africa's digital talent. Let me give more details of our research in this research program. So China's leadership in digital economy development is well established globally. Through platforms such as the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation and the Belt and Road Initiative, China and African countries has made substantial progress in digital economic collaboration. Major economic companies like Huawei, Tencent, Baidu, and Alibaba have invested heavily in Africa, particularly in 5G technologies, digital finance, digital healthcare, and government service. These efforts have improved the global reach of Chinese companies, and by 2022, China had signed e-commerce cooperation agreements with 30 countries. The digital economy is shaping the future of global growth, and a joint effort to build a high-quality digital Silk Road will not only emphasize Africa's economy and unlock new growth opportunities, but also deepen economic and trade ties between China and Africa. This partnership will play a crucial role in establishing a new development model for both regions. China and Africa are increasingly aligning their development strategies to support each other's growth. As the fourth industrial revolution propels the world towards digitalization, African nations are placing great emphasis on developing their digital economies. At the continental level, the African Union has launched initiatives such as the Agenda 2016-3 and the Digital Transformation Strategy for Africa, aiming at lifting the continent out of its global digital depression. On a national level, countries like South Africa are working to expand digital access. The Digital Silk Road aligns well with Africa's digital transformation policies, bringing successful experience, investment, and technology to African countries. China's cooperation with South Africa on building the continent's first independent 5G commercial network is a prime example of how such partnerships can drive transformative outcomes. The global digital landscape is still highly uneven, with the majority of internet users residing in high-income countries, while high-income countries boasted 93% internet coverage. The figure for low-income countries was just 27%. The Digital Silk Road aims to bridge this digital divide by promoting the development of digital infrastructure and improve internet service across Africa. By helping African nations reduce their digital gaps, China is enabling them to gather the reward of digital transformation and contribute to a more equitable global digital economy. So, to build a high-quality digital Silk Road, it is essential to focus on nurturing local digital talent in Africa through enhanced China-Africa educational cooperation. The plan for China-Africa cooperation on talent development should prioritize educational programs and China aid initiatives that expand digital literacy and skills. These programs should be inclusive, widely accessible, and designed to provide basic digital economy knowledge to a broad section of Africa's population, supporting the growth of the digital economy. Given the severe shortage of digital professionals in Africa, China government scholarships, as well as scholarships from provincial authorities, universities, and research institutions, should geared towards fields like digital technology and digital economy. Furthermore, China companies should be encouraged to increase their investment in Africa's digital economy. Establishing young innovation centers, open labs, and local data center will not only provide a conducive environment for Africa digital professionals, but also meet the growth need for skilled local talent within Chinese companies operating in Africa. By encouraging sectors such as digital finance, digital transportation, digital healthcare, and government service, and government to take part in developing digital professionals, China and Africa can ensure the long-term sustainability of this collaboration. China and Africa has the potential to strengthen educational cooperation and jointly build a high-quality digital Silk Road. This partnership will not only support the Africa's digital transformation, but also deepen economic ties, creating new opportunities for both regions. So this is our research. Thank you for your listening.
Okay, thank you. We are not going to have lunch. We're going to have the two respondents here who will make some interventions. Minister, welcome to the session. We did indicate that our honorable minister was somewhere and he will arrive later. So he is our minister, but he's also our student. So he's also learning from the conversations that are taking place that are taking place here. So I'm going to have the two academics to talk back to back, and they will focus specifically on what does this thing mean for public servants? Why does it matter? Because that is who we are. So Dr. Manasa from the University of Botswana will come first, and then immediately after that, it will be Prof. Paswana from UNISA. Please come.
Good morning. Is it good afternoon? My name is Boga Manasa from the University of Botswana. I'm just your neighbor. I'm just going to quickly respond because I've been given very few minutes to make some intervention. What I can say is that the issue of culture that Professor Wang has talked about is as old as mankind or humankind itself. We can see it from the discussion of Confucius, Socrates, Plato, etc., etc. But I want to say that culture, we are always told that is dynamic. It's not static, it changes. It changes, and nearly everyone now agrees that culture matters, but how it matters is not really clear. How does it matter in the public service? How does it matter in the academia or in the general life? I want to put these questions into three broad categories of how to understand the culture from a historical context or from a sociological point of view. First, there was the understanding by Matthew Arnolds, who wrote in his book, Culture and Anarchy. That was, the book was published in 1867. So to him, he said that he referred to culture as a special intellectual or artistic endeavors or products, what we today refer to as high culture, or sometimes refers to as popular culture. Yeah, according to Arnold, only few people in a society have a culture. The rest are potential anarchists. So you can see the ideological bias within that definition. Only few people in a society have got a culture, whereas the rest are potential anarchists. So, which means that that was due to the fact that you always hear people saying, Mwanayo is uncultured, something like that, because they have put themselves in a very high pedestal in a particular society and view others as uncultured. Secondly, I would go to the second understanding of culture by Edward Tyler. Edward Tyler wrote in his Primitive Culture in 1870. Primitive Culture in 1870. He says all people possess what we call, all people in a group, they've got a culture. But the issue was, although these individuals with their own culture, they are reigned according to savagery, barbarity, and civilization. So I think that's where we always hear people talking about uncivilized culture. These are barbarians and etc., etc. That itself is problematic also because ideologically it classifies people because on the basis of they are uncultured, they are uncivil, they are, whatever it is. The last one that I would want to emphasize was a work by Franz Boas that was in the 20th century. Boas has rubbished all these others and saying that, no, each individual culture has to be respected in its own context. So there's no culture which is superior than any other culture. So that was Boas, who has written in the 20th century, but Boas' work is also premised or based on the 18th century work by Johann von Heyden. So why am I mentioning all this? I'm mentioning all this because we are discussing culture is relevance to public service, relevance to economics. I would say that in our education system, for instance, we're still failing to introduce or practice multiculturalism in education. So many countries in Africa, their education system takes an approach of a nationalist culture, not necessarily the diversity of cultures within a particular country. So that is what we see. So when we come to economics, for instance, when we define or we negotiate contract deals or trade deals with either the East Asians or another country, do really Africans understand the culture of China, the Chinese culture? Do we really understand the culture of the Koreans? We do not. So, and because many people think that China has progressed very well, they want to understand that progression of China from an economic point of view. But they fail to understand that when China opened up and reformed in 1979, after the coming in of Deng Xiaoping, so that when the Chinese did that, they were looking at the fact that culturally, or from a Confucian point of view, a leader has a moral obligation to lead, not only a political obligation. So therefore, as a leader, if you fail your own people, you are actually offending God, because to them, to the Chinese, the leaders are the sons of heaven. So they've been appointed by heaven to be in that position. So these are the issues that when you look at economic progress, either the relationship between Africa and other countries, first of all, we should be understanding their culture. I remember at one point there was an economic forum in Botswana where we wanted to learn from the Koreans. And I asked a minister, and he was very angry. I said, but do you understand the Koreans? What lessons are you learning from the Koreans if you don't understand from a cultural context? Because you have the economic model of the Asian tiger, the East Asian tigers. You may take all South Korea, you may take Japan, you may take all even Indonesia under Suharto, or the Philippines under Marcos. So those were developing based on a political context, or a particular context of those countries, not necessarily from an economic intervention. So what I would also want to say is that even the public service, when we deal with our own people in villages or et cetera, do we really understand who they are? Because our public policies have to be tailored in such a way that they factor into the cultural diversity of our own people. But in most cases, the national development policies of African states, they're based on national culture, because we assume that there's a national culture. Whatever that means, I don't know, because there's nothing like national culture. A country is formed by a group of people with diverse religions, diverse aspirations, diverse cultures, languages. All those development interventions has to take into consideration such diversities in our own context. I'll give you an example of the Japanese, for those who understand Japanese history. In 1854-53, when General Matthew Perry arrived in Japan, he tried to entice the Japanese by giving them lot of gifts. But the Japanese saw these people as barbarians, the Americans as barbarians and uncivilized. At the same time, the Americans saw them as uncivilized. So similar when the British, Professor Wang, when they came under the Qing dynasty, which lasted from 1644 to 1911, they also tried to entice them with gifts. But these people saw them as, we don't need them. We don't need these gifts. We are very much civilized. So that issue of civilization, that issues of culture is contextualized. It must be contextualized. It should not be approached from an elitist point of view. So having said that, I do believe that as we are gathered here today, we need to take a note of that. When we look at our economic models, they have to be contextualized and based on the diversity that we do have. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Wang, Dr. Sindhu, and thank you to the School of Government for the invitation as well. And my role, like my predecessor, is to respond to your presentation, which I think also took us the direction of intercultural perspective. And my brief was on FOCAC. So I'll start by first acknowledging the principal as well as the minister and all foreign dignitaries and our own local ones present here today. I think my colleague has already indicated some of the issues with regard to culture and what culture is and is not. And I agree with him that culture is dynamic. We create culture. We as the people, we create culture, and culture differs in many ways. But I want us to look at the relationship with China, this intercultural perspective that Professor Wang has already indicated. Historically, we will know that we have had several ties with China through the ancient routes. The Silk Road connected China and Africa for a long time, and also the modern diplomatic relations that began in the 1950s and 60s. And we continue to see our relations economically, that China is one of the Africa's largest trading partner, and Chinese investments in Africa, many of them focusing on infrastructure, natural resources, and manufacturing. And also that Africa became a very key player in China's Belt and Road initiative of what is abbreviated as the BRI. In terms of cultural exchanges, we have seen that Chinese culture is spreading in Africa through language programs, the Confucius Institutes that are here, and the media, the Chinese media that we see. African students and businessmen are increasingly traveling to China. And there are various challenges and criticism, and I'll come to them later because they are all closely linked to the critique on modernization. And I think it's important for our Chinese colleagues also to note some of these critiques. And the other important thing that we need to note is also these differences and misunderstanding that cause conflicts between the different cultures. And we've seen them in the media where people are even killing Chinese people on the continent because of some of these misunderstandings that causes conflicts, and also concerns over Chinese debt diplomacy, labor practices, and some of these environmental impacts. And some of the issues that I personally wanted to link to relates to our relationship with FOCAC, and also the critique on modernization. I'm a student of development, and I studied international development. And usually when we look into some of these issues, we would start from the post-war, especially development, the post-war reconstruction, which gave us the Bretton Woods and what we call or define as development today. And our colleagues, I would like us to look at your use of the concept of modernization, and which also President Xi uses a lot, which poses a problem because on this side of the world, when we look at modernization, there are several issues that we have around modernization, because as the first speaker or the ambassador was saying, modernization as westernization. And I think that's something, I don't know what term you could have chosen, or President Xi chosen to use. Because for us, we see modernization as the first world or a particular country helping this poor country, an advanced country seeking to help a poor country, maybe in terms of capital, in terms of technical skills that are needed there. And also the assumption usually is that there are internal dynamics that are impeding development, which are the reason for the non-development of that poor country, and therefore is the fault of the poor country as economic system. And that's why the discomfort with the notion of modernization. And also modernization assumes that development is unilinear. It's unilinear, which means also it's a linear one. And also it goes through the same stages. Or even development has modernization is the final stage of development. And that also is very problematic as well. And I'm saying, I'm picking up these issues around modernization because I know that FOCAC is really centered around the concept of modernization or advancing modernization. And then the other important is that when we modernize, usually we look for internal causes of poverty. And therefore, culturally, that also can pose a problem because people might look at what we don't have materially and assume that a country is not developed. Therefore, we have to come and rescue that country. So they look for internal causes of poverty, leaving other external factors that can be contributing to the failure or the lack of development in a country. And also it ignore the structure of the global economy. There's a tendency to ignore the structure of the global economy. For instance, in our case here of Africa, there's also an issue of colonial exploitation that led Africa to where it is. And that understanding, that intercultural understanding is very, very significant and important as we come together to work together to understand that there were issues, external interference, even in the contemporary, outside of the colonial system. We also understand that there is still external interference from other countries into. If you go to the DRC, the Congo, why people are fighting, why the conflict is not coming to an end. Many of the issues at the Congo is not even within. So that understanding as China interface with Africa is very, very critical. The other important issue is also the assumption that industrialization will be a panacea for all the problems that we have. But we have a history of these modernization theories over a long time, which suggested that industrialization does not guarantee an improvement of living standards of people. Many countries, including this South Africa, industrialized, but if you travel further than outside Johannesburg or Gauteng province, where many people come, you will also realize that industrialization does not guarantee living standards. And it's important that cultural understanding as well to understand ourselves here. And then the other one is around holding the lifestyle of a particular country as a yardstick to judge the development of other nations. Sometimes we do it to ourselves as well as Africans, looking at where China is right now and making it our yardstick and wanting to be like China. And that also devalues traditional values and social institutions that makes us who we are as Africans. And I think, Mama, you have talked about family as very important to Chinese, it's important to Africans as well. There's a social institutions that we hold very high. And sometimes we also have to understand that values might be responsible for some of the economic insecurity and low levels of material well-being, and not necessarily the cause, because like the family is one example that one can use as well. Like sometimes it's my family when I don't have that are there for me, not even the state. But I know that I will not go to sleep hungry because my family is. So it's a very important social institution that we need to also to understand within this context. And also the root of modernization also assumes that unlimited, there will be an unlimited natural resources for industrial expansion while ignoring ecological issues as well. And I'm glad that the FOCAC also has promised to take this route of green development, and they have promised us 30 clean energy projects in this 2024 FOCAC. And I think that is very important for sustainability of resources, to understand that what we have today might not be there tomorrow. When I grew up, I have never imagined South Africa being without electricity, having load shedding and all this. I thought this is something that we're going to have for the rest of our life and the lifetime. So for now, where we are also beginning to realize that that idea of modernization, thinking that natural resources will be here forever, and some of this civilization that also actually in our context, it came with the West, is decadent, because you realize how when people were industrializing, trees were chopped and everywhere. And now we are told back to plant trees because somebody has realized that the trees were very important as part of development. And now a decadent civilization is also calling us back to plant even on the rooftops of these high buildings, because they realize that you need green life to be able to make it. I wish to stop here because of time, and I just want to say thank you for coming to South Africa and taking us through this. But let's just seriously look into our concept of modernization, because for many of us, it brings a lot of trauma to speak of modernization, and development for many of us is not just modernization, it's not just industrialization. I know that the definition of development is contested, but it means many things to us, including those green spaces and also including those social institutions that get very important. Thank you.
Prof. Paswana, thank you very much for that. You know, so Minister, earlier on, Prof. Wang, when she started in her input, she was talking about language and culture and why it matters. So in the intellectual critique in Africa, modernization equals colonization in terms of the language, because the missionaries said they were modernizing us. And there's a large body of work in different disciplines that critique modernization and its meaning. So whereas in the Chinese language, modernization, that means building infrastructure, building cities, water, electricity, and so on. That is in the Chinese context. That's what modernization means. So when we are talking as public servants, when the Chinese talk about the modernization benefits of a particular project, we listen, we hear, we understand, but there will always be that thing that modernization for 300 years had a different meaning altogether. So through the interactions like these ones, we're trying to build like that common understanding. I remember I wrote a speech once, and I asked one colleague here at the NSG to proofread it. And I had written the word modernization. Dr. Sal Mutayan, she violently objected and she removed it because she said, no, you can't say that, Principal. You can't use that language. But of course, that's a context of FOCAC. The leadership understands what is meant by that because they're looking at the development outcomes. But elsewhere, unless we have this conversation, modernization will mean something else. Also, China, they have this culture of giving gifts. There's always a gift to be given and so on. And then in South Africa, if you get a gift, you are reluctant to take it. If you don't take it, we are offending. So you are offending people by refusing to take gifts. You'll see, Minister, in the register of members' interest in Parliament, there's a lot of members of Parliament from all different parties who declare that they got a gift of tea or something from the Chinese ambassador. Because when they go there, they will get gifts. If you refuse, you are being rude. And you can imagine minister on a state visit with the heads of state, negotiating a very important deal. Then they are giving a gift and we are refusing a gift. So that part of intercultural communication can collapse a very strategic initiative because we did not pay attention to it. That is why it matters. And the challenge, of course, on the digital economy, well, China is making some changes now. If you go to China carrying a Visa or a MasterCard, you will be frustrated. You must go and withdraw money because you can't transact with the cards that we use. Very few, maybe Starbucks and others, but you can't use them. That's because they've digitized their economy. They've basically literally removed even the money part of it. You use your mobile phone. You don't need to carry a wallet because you use your mobile phone. And that is how they've digitized the economy. When I was there, I was in a fast train. I saw very old people in a train that's better than how train, like a first class train. And there were old women carrying vegetables in this train. You know, here in South Africa, people will complain, will call 702. Udlabo Gogo are in the trade with vegetables and so on. But there they're using technology and infrastructure to aid these old people to go and sell their agriculture products in the market. And so the train the transport system is very democratic. And these old people don't carry money. All they need is a phone and be able to use their mobile phones to do transactions on daily basis. And there's a lot of South African young people who are training now in China on the digital economy as engineers and so on. In May, Minister, I voted in Shanghai because I was there. There were 300 people in the queue when I got there at 9. Of the 300 people, I think about 200 of them were below the age of 35. And they were women and they were majority Black. So I spoke to them, actually interviewed a lot of them. These are young unemployed South African graduates who have been employed in China to teach English. There's a lot of them. I know they come from villages and everywhere else. They said, well, we work here, we have jobs. And they were having fun. They took me to a party afterwards. There's a Shisanyama, South African Shisanyama there in Shanghai, run by a Nigerian fellow there. Now I engaged them. One of them has been there for 12 years. She has not learned the language. And she regrets that she has not learned the language, Mandarin. The other 3, they did learn the language here. They were unemployed teachers for 5 years and they got jobs and they are there. And as far as they are concerned, there is more opportunities there. By the way, in China, now English is compulsory in French and others. They prefer South Africans to teach English there at kindergarten. It's South Africans and Americans. They consider them to be first language speakers of English. I'm sorry, my friend, Botswana and Zimbabwe. Botswana and Zimbabwe is not preferred for whatever reason. So I'm saying there are lots of those opportunities that are taking place over there. And finally, Minister, on the issue of culture and policy, we saw even with the recent visits of the president, there is a lot of scholarship opportunities for South African and African students in general in China, a lot of them. And they have changed the policy. Whereas 5 years ago, if you go study in China, you must study in Chinese. Now, almost all universities have what is called English taught programs. So which means that more Africans are able to go there and they don't have the burden of having to learn Mandarin first before they can do any other course, which means they've adjusted their own policy as a country to accommodate and expand. However, here, and I'm not complaining to you, Minister, here in South Africa, for example, in most of those programs, there's a lot of Botswana. I mean, my cousin is studying there now in one university. There is 60 of them in their program, all from Africa. He is the only one from South Africa. He's the only one also who wasn't working he resigned from government. All the others, their governments have a policy that allows their public servants to take 1 year to go and study and come back on a full scholarship. With our laws now, you must resign, or you must take unpaid leave for 12 months and all of those things. So these conversations are meant to help us with that intercultural engagement. Of course, Minister, we've got these academics here. And the issue is what they teach has to be grounded on facts, specifics, and so on. And that is why we invite them into this conversation. And as Prof. Wang was saying, when there are opportunities for us to send people there, in fact, I think in the program in November, we already have 2 academics. So we don't always send strictly public servants. We also bring some of our partner institutions. Unfortunately, most of them have an age limit, 50 and below, and most of the academics have, are on the other side. But we do, because most of those programs, that is what they want. Finally, Minister, I want to give you an example, a very basic example of why FOCAC and the bilateral relationship with us and China matters even for someone in a rural area in Limpopo. I have a friend who's a DG at DPM in the presidency. He always brings me like bags of avocado, and he tells me that in Vembe region, they produce the best avos. So he gives me these avos for free. He claims they are the best. I can eat half. I don't like avo, but my kids do eat it. And then, of course, you can't eat the rest. Now, last year, President Xi Jinping signed an avocado agreement. So the Chinese now have over 500 million middle class. And for the middle class, there are certain things that show they are now middle class. One of them includes eating avo or using products made with avo. So for the Chinese people, 3,000 years, they never really ate avo. Now they are eating avo. It's a big thing for them. So there is a big opportunity for rural households that have got avocado trees to export these avos there. However, value is lost because public servants, Minister, don't understand, like my friend who brings it to me, that if they were to facilitate that this avo is taken good care of whilst it is growing, is harvested properly, is packaged properly, is transported properly, that it can end up in a dinner table in Shanghai. So as a result, a public servant may not support those rural households to do the pesticides and insect on time, because there are restrictions about when do you spray. So they will spray late, value then is lost. We must throw that avo away. Secondly, avo, you carry it like eggs. You harvest and you carry like eggs throughout. And you carry it in a refrigerated truck and a refrigerated container. Public servants work for agriculture and local economic development. Some of them don't know this, so they don't support those households to properly harvest and store and transport into the port, so that Prof. Wang in Beijing can have a salad that has avo in it, or they can use cosmetics we have. As a result, then these rural households are losing. Just as Minister, we are aware, when there's an outbreak of foot and mouth, those cattle may be destined for a market in Asia or somewhere else. But there are officials of agriculture who may take longer to quarantine. And if there's foot and mouth here at the NSG, you quarantine quickly, foot and mouth will not spread. And just as bird flu. So you won't be culling chickens across Gauteng because the outbreak was in a confined space. So we bring these things so that public servants must understand the value chain and the political economy, that a trade deal signed by 2 heads of state can have an impact on poverty in a rural area. Because if you do that work properly, you quarantine, you spray on time, you give fertilizer on time, then you know that that avocado may end up in a dinner table somewhere, or that that cow that is killed like they did in Mhlabelengana last year when there was foot and mouth. When they to quarantine and kill some of those cows, there is someone in Asia who lost an opportunity to enjoy a T-bone steak from Mhlabelengana. And when you have to cull or kill a cow, a household is losing 10,000 rands because the cow has been killed. But there is a government official of the Department of Agriculture who could have done something to prevent the spread and therefore save the economy. So we want people to connect the dots between your action as an official at a very local level and how it has an impact on the overall GDP. And that is how we are trying to do, Minister, what we call a 101 of FOCAC and so on. So people make this connection and doesn't think, this thing is nice for heads of state to take a picture with President Xi Jinping. We saw the stampede there because everybody wanted that picture. So that is basically, Minister, the whole connection of why we are here and why we bring this type of conversations here. And of course, we do the same with other countries as well. But for now, China is the largest trading partner, and the Chinese are looking for our red meat, for our nuts, for our avocado. They're also looking for our red wine, here in South Africa. But for those who are big farmers, they have a system to get these products there. But our communities are losing out unless we have a system of supporting them to get their products into the market, and it's possible to do so. So that's why we're here, colleagues, Minister, let me invite you to make just your own impressions, to talk, to us, and then we will release the colleagues to enjoy some lunch. The meat outside, I'm told, is from the Karoo.
Yeah, thank you very much, Principal, and greetings to all your esteemed guests. I will simply observe the protocol that was established before I come. When I was seated there, when Prof asked the question that if you were to save your mom or your wife, who could you save? I was very conflicted. Unfortunately, my response had nothing to do with the two, because I could have saved my daughter. So meaning none of them could have been saved by myself. Yeah, so, but I'm very happy to be part of this conversation as much as I joined it later. This is really an academic discussion, which is so much challenging to your mind, to an extent that you begin to ask yourself, why all these controversies? Because you spoke about culture. And then I'd like the analogy that Prof, I believe, from Botswana is made to say, when in the olden days, when you look at culture, some culture will punish a leader who fails to deliver on what is expected of him. And if you look at that particular culture, had we cultivated it up until where we are today, most of our problems could have been solved. And if you listen to it from the context of our public service, it speaks to what I always say, that most of us who joined public service donkeys of years in 1952, like myself. So this was a calling than anything else, meaning people felt that they have an obligation to serve, and not in any way, in a very ethical way. So I think such discussions, therefore, even to tap into the different cultures, we need to have more of them. And also, when you now come to just refusing a gift of 5 friends, which could possibly undermine a multi-billion deal, how did we land to that particular scenario where if I'm accepting a gift that could amount to something that says there is a bribe in between. How did we get there? Because ordinarily, that shouldn't have been the case. So something went wrong somewhere, and then we had to take a decision that have far-reaching impact just because of our failure to do with that particular issue that has come up. So I've got few observations from a political point of view, of course. Firstly, as I appreciated this opportunity and the fact that principally you invited me here just to listen to task engagement is very much enriching for me. So I can only congratulate you for this successful seminar on the forum on China-Africa cooperation. So the reflections and insight from the speakers who have spoken here confirms for me the importance of the strategic partnership between China and Africa, which proves that this partnership is not only built on economic cooperations, but is built on shared commitment and development. And also, I want to say that from the discussions, from my point of view, they've reinforced my belief that the vision for high-level China-Africa community is not just a political and economic aspirations, but it's an expression of our commitment to solidarity, mutual respect, and joint development. The speakers have eloquently highlighted the opportunities that exist through sharing knowledge, training, and building capacity. So, Professor and your esteemed guest, this is where our true strength lies, which is our ability to learn from one another and to build institutions that are both modern and inclusive. As I've reflected on the wisdom shared here by various speakers, the one that spoke when I was already here, it's evident that the future of China-Africa relations will be defined by our ability to adapt and work together in the face of global challenges. So as we focus on strengthening our partnership for capacity building and professionalization towards a modern and high-level China-Africa community with a shared future, it's also clear that the vision goes beyond the imminence, but also to the long-term transformation of our societies. So today's engagement has shown that partnership based on mutual respect and shared future are important. It's through such that we can confront common challenges from poverty to technical advancement. So I'm truly inspired, Prof, by the insights shared today, and I'm equally motivated by the promise of what can be achieved through this forum. And I would therefore like to reaffirm that the vision of high-level China-Africa community with a shared future is not just an aspiration, but a reality that we are building today. So let us continue to harness the momentum that we gain from such a forum while ensuring that our cooperation remain a model of success for the world to follow. I really appreciate the opportunity and to be part of this, what you call discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. DDG, do a vote of thanks, then we have some refreshments.
Thank you, Principal. Know that there are a few words that if you attend any summit in office of state, you know, they all say the same thing when they finish, which delegates look forward to. We have come to the end of a very successful. So that is my job today. We have come to the end of a very successful seminar. which talks to us about the partnership between Africa and China. And as we know, the vision of South Africa, which we express all the time internationally, our foreign policy vision, is to build a better Africa and a better world. Obviously, we cannot build it alone. We build it through partnerships. So it's about our own contribution to building an Africa that is without violence, without wars, without diseases, and an Africa where we are able to achieve the goals that are informed by Agenda 2063, as we know, of the AU. And then on the UN side, multilaterality, UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then when we bring it home, we have our own National Development Plan, which therefore says that's what we want to achieve internationally, what we want to achieve in Africa. But then we have our own goals as South Africa, which is to achieve. In fact, if you ask my mother, what is the job of government? She will say is to make people happy. And there's nothing bigger and better than that. And how are we going to make South Africans happy? Is reduce and hopefully in our lifetime, eliminate poverty, inequality, unemployment, build a South Africa where there's inclusive growth so that people can live a better life. Back to us now, NSG, where do we fit in? We fit in here. Building an ethical and also a developmental public service. So that is why this seminar has been so important for us, because you're giving us food for thought. So we thank all our panelists for the food for thought on what else we should be looking into in building these partnerships that will help us in our jobs here, to train public servants that will do their jobs better so that the goals of South Africa can be achieved and also the goals of Africa can be achieved and ultimately the goals of the world. So also the people-to-people cooperation, because you can't do that without people. It's people who deliver services, it's people who run the public service. So that was a very important contribution. We are so happy that our minister has spent almost the whole day with us. We know he's busier to go to another function. He was with us in the morning, which is why you see the professoriate here. There's so many professors, scholars, and academics. We are so happy that they were with us in the morning because we had another session launching our new partnership on integrated management development program, and then they were able to join us here. So we thank you, Minister. We join all our participants. We thank our panelists. We thank all who joined us online, because it is these discussions that make us think out of the box, think what else, because it's about what else, what can I do differently to improve what I do already. So really, we have really come to the end of a very fruitful discussion. But this time, very, very well meant. We really appreciate NSG colleagues. We appreciate you being here as well. Your participation and your contribution to make this a success. Let me not stand between you and your lunch. Thank you very much. Yes, I think we're going to have a family photo between Minister and the panelists here. Yeah.